part of why Civitas has been so influential in my life. And then I'll go back to kind of the beginning of the program and why I joined, and then go through kind of my freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior years in the program, and then take a step back and look at some of the more general implications that Civitas has had on my life and my personal development, and then at the end I'll have time for some questions. Alright, so first let's talk about life before Civitas. So for those of you who don't know me personally, I was born in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, and I moved to Norway when I was about 2, moved back to Ethiopia when I was about 5, moved a couple places in Canada a couple years after that, and then we settled in Sacramento when I was in the 6th grade. And so throughout all of the different schools that I went to, I think I switched schools probably every year between like 1st and 7th grade. I was always pretty strong academically, but it wasn't that I was one of those kids who, was going to go home and be reading all the time or was really interested in what I was learning. Frankly, I can't really even tell you why I did really well in school. I just thought it was kind of something that I was supposed to do. And then in the 8th grade, I was in 8th grade at Arden Middle School, and 2 kids who were freshmen at the time in the Civitas program came to speak to my classmates and I about joining the program. And the one memory from that day that really stands out to me was that they were using a lot of big words and talking about things that I didn't understand, and I really didn't like that I didn't understand them. So I kind of was like, all right, I need to get to the bottom of this. What is the hype? What is this program? Let's see what it's all about. Another big part of why I joined Civitas was that, despite only having moved to the United States in about 2009, my parents, I remember when we were living in Canada, they'd be watching the presidential debates from the US, and I'm like, you guys, what they're doing down there doesn't affect anybody else. Like, why do you even care? But, now I know that's not true. But anyway, it was, I heard it a lot from my parents. My 8th grade, the end of my 8th grade, going into my freshman year, 2012, was a national election year. So, I was hearing different campaign ads and things from pretty much every medium. And again, I really didn't like that I didn't know what was going on and that I didn't understand what the people around me were talking about. But both my parents are in academia, so we're always watching the news at home. We'd be talking about it at dinner and things like that. And so I just kind of figured, you know what, I'm just going to stop resisting it. I'm going to get to know this. Politics is not something that's ever going to go away. So, let's like it. Let's learn about it. So I joined Civitas as, a freshman, as most of us do. And in my freshman year, going into 9th grade, I can pretty confidently say that I didn't really know anything about anything. I didn't know whether I was a liberal, I didn't know whether I was a conservative, I didn't know what those words even really meant, to be honest with you. I remember watching Dick Cheney speak at Perspectives in 2012, which was an event that we actually went to, we actually went to the event with a bunch of Civitas kids, and truthfully, at the time, I don't think I understood that he was the former Vice President of the United States. I didn't understand why he was such a controversial speaker. And so, just all of these really fundamental things that you would expect, somebody to know living in a democratic society, I wasn't aware of. As the year went on, I started knowing things. I started learning things, both in terms of content. We were reading, primary sources from Cicero and reading introductory level college textbooks. And so the level of critical reading and writing and the level of engagement that, was expected of you in the class really did help me develop as a student. But another equally as important part of my growth that year was that I started discovering some of my own strengths. Going into freshman year, I didn't know that I would enjoy speaking in front of people. And, throughout the congresses and things, I just remember people would always be really nervous to get up there, and I just never felt like 1 minute was enough. I wanted to spend the whole class up there. And I don't think that that's something, I don't know that that's something I really discovered had I not had this experience. Started kind of learning more about myself, and by the end of the year, I decided that this was a program that, if I stuck with it, was, really going to help me grow into the type of person that I wanted to be. So in the sophomore year, the first semester, we take a speech and communications class, and I think that beyond just, the rhetoric and the different types of, presentational skills and things that I learned in that class, excuse me, there was a big emphasis on talking about, the education system, its failures, its strengths, reform, what kinds of things our generation can do and should do in order to, provide the same opportunities for our children and our children's children. And that just made me really kind of appreciate how privileged I was, and it made me realize that I was really lucky to be, in a California distinguished school. I was really lucky to be in this environment that had all sorts of classes, all sorts of extracurriculars available, full of, teachers and administrators who were really there for you and wanted you to succeed. And so that really prompted me to take advantage of the different opportunities at Rio. In my freshman year, I was taking Civitas, I was playing soccer, and I think taking like one honors class, and that was about it. And so my sophomore year, I joined mock trial and speech and debate and started playing more competitive soccer. And so really just kind of trying to engage myself in as many different things as I could. And in doing that, I discovered that I was a person who kind of thrived when I had more things to do. I'm not someone who gets more done when I have less on my plate. So I think discovering that and kind of realizing that I really like staying busy all the time has been also a pretty crucial component of my development. And so I started building a resume, but more importantly, I started building a sense of self, a sense of who I was, kind of what I wanted, well, I mean, at least to the extent that you can when you're 15, right? But kind of started getting just a better idea of what I wanted from the program, what kinds of things I wanted to accomplish, where I wanted to be when I was getting out of high school, and even in the later years after that. And towards the end of my sophomore year, I started thinking about college. And so at the beginning of high school, I was not a student who went in and was like, I'm going to go to this school, I'm going to accomplish this and that and this and that. And, through kind of the more rigorous Civitas classes and the bump it gave me in my GPA and all of the other doors that it opened up for me, it kind of like gave me the confidence to realize that, hey, if you stay on this track and you keep working really hard, you really could be an eligible candidate for some of these top schools. And then junior year came around. And as it says up there, it really was the best of times and the worst of times. There were some, really good days, and Civitas was a lot of fun in that year, but it was also really hard at times just because there was a lot to do. And philosophy, which was the Civitas class that we took in the first semester of that year, was a really nice break from, like all of the APs and things like that, in the sense that it made me realize that all of the different things I was doing and all of the stress that I was putting myself under wasn't an end in and of itself. It was a means to an end, and there was an end result, and it made me realize, first of all, it kind of just was like a reality check. It made me realize that, no assignment, no deadline is really all that serious. I mean, it is, but if you miss it, it's, the world's not going to cave in or anything. And it kept me really grounded in, and helped me realize my own values and the things that I really cared about. But more than that, even Civitas was a support system both inside and outside of the classroom and involving both the students and the teachers. So because most of the Civitas kids are, academically motivated, it was really nice to be in an environment where the kids understood, the kind of pressure that was there, they understood the kind of stress that was there. And so it was just a really good place to be able to be like, hey, I'm really stressed out, or, oh, I don't really understand what's going on in, this class or that class. And so it was just, it was just a really, really comfortable and supportive environment to be in. And then, excuse me, and Miss Reed and Miss Seibel also had, I think, a really good balancing act of knowing when I wasn't doing as well as I should have been, when, I wasn't prioritizing as well as I should have been, and things like that. But also when to push me and when to be like, you can do better, you've done better in the past, or like, you know how to do this. And so an example of that actually was the summer after my junior year, or the summer after the junior year, we do, or all the Civitas kids do, an internship. Thank you. And originally I really wanted to intern at the Northern California World Trade Center. I kind of realized that, I think probably, in the beginning of my junior year, because I was debating going into business and law. Those were the two fields I was kind of dabbling in. And so I interviewed and got the internship at the NorCal World Trade Center. And then later on in the year, I met Judge Lawrence Brown, who was a judge at the Sacramento Superior Courthouse, and he offered me an internship. And so I was kind of torn because I was like, it's my summer and I don't really know what I want to do, and I thought I was going to be having to like take a class and all those other things. And Ms. Reed was like, no, get out in the community, get out of the classroom, go do the things that you want to do. So I ended up doing both of those internships, and it was definitely a really, really fun summer for me. Now on to my senior project and restorative justice. So, restorative justice is really essentially just an alternative philosophy to approaching behavioral issues on campus. And so I think the system that we have right now focuses a little bit more on retribution than it does on restoration. And what I mean by that is that there's a bit more of an emphasis on, you did this crime, and so this is the punishment, rather than, why did you do this? What led you to do this? How can we avoid making the same mistakes in the future? And so the way that I'm handling this is by developing a peer court at Rio Americano. And the structure of the peer court goes a little something like this. We have a group of about 50 kids, both Civitas, non-Civitas, kids from band, kids from football, kids from Avid. I really wanted it to be a pool that was representative of the Rio student body. And in the peer court itself, we're going to have a tribunal, so there will be 3 students who kind of act as the judges, I suppose, and then there will be the student who is on trial for whatever infraction he or she committed, and that student gets an advocate who also comes from the same pool of about 50 or so kids that were in the process of training. And then we'll have a bailiff, or 2 bailiffs actually, that will bring the kids in and out because it will be happening during an entire period, and I want to keep it as effective and productive as possible. So while one student is going, the other bailiff will go and fetch the next student, and so on and so forth. So in order to kind of set the program up, I had to go out and recruit kids. So this was all done on a volunteer basis. I had to go out and talk to classrooms and send emails, and sometimes send multiple emails and things like that. And then as far as the training goes, so we split the kids up into 2 groups, and each of the 2 groups had 2 training sessions, and the second group actually just had their second training session today. So in the very first group, with the first training session, we had actually an outside organization come in and help us out a little bit, and they emphasized, so the restorative justice, the concept, I think, it comes from the idea of breaking down the high school to prison pipeline. But that's not really a problem that we have on this campus. So I had to really alter the system and make it something that was going to work for kind of the socioeconomic demographic at Rio Americano. And then after training the students, now I'm in the process of setting up the framework for the different infractions and the different sanctions that they're allowed to impose. And so I have to make sure that, I'm not going to go against anything in the ed code, make sure that it's going to coincide with, the vice principals and the principals and the rest of the administration's kind of rules. And of course, it also has to coincide with the district. And so it's a lot of kind of, cross-referencing and things like that. But also I sent out a survey to the students and to the parents and to the teachers because I wanted to know what the community felt should be within the jurisdiction of the peer courts, and also what kind of sanctions they felt were appropriate. And so at the beginning of the next semester, well, we've actually already started producing the video, but at the beginning of the next semester, we'll be releasing a video that is kind of roll out the program to the rest of the campus. And so that's been a lot of fun because it's a little bit of, we're kind of having it like a parody movie trailer, and so I wanted the kids on campus to realize that, this is going to be something fun and engaging and not something that was going to be tedious and they were going to be forced to do. And then, so unfortunately that video is not going to be ready until next semester, so instead for today I have just a couple of clips that I took of the kids who are involved in restorative justice, talking about what kinds of changes they think the program can bring to Rio and why they joined the program and why they think it will be effective.
My initial reaction to restorative justice was just that it was an interesting take on the disciplinary system in high schools, just because from what I've heard and what I've done to be disciplinary system, it's kind of like a teacher and administrative process rather than a student process, which restorative justice very much is. So I thought that was very interesting.
I decided to join restorative justice because it's something that I really believe in. That people need help in working out their problems, not just focusing on what they did. And I know a lot of people at school are like, this is what they need. They need, someone to actually help them talk them through the issue rather than just punishing them for what happened. Because to them, detention is just like you just go and sit, you're not really fixing anything. Restorative justice is really a way to solve these problems.
Probably the lack of respect that students have for their supervisor.
Playing the different roles as, on the tribunal and as advocates and as bailiffs as well. And the kids actually will rotate through all of the different positions because I want them to have a good understanding of, the courts too. And you might notice that most of the kids that I interviewed were either sophomores and juniors, and that's because this is going to be a program that is going to be at the school year after year, and I didn't want to train a bunch of seniors and then have them leave after a semester. So it's also a good way to get kind of the younger kids involved. So the idea actually first came to me through Miss Reed. Towards the end of my junior year, I remember called me to her office and was like, hey, I have this idea for a senior project, and I think you would be a really good candidate to do it. She knows that I've been involved in mock trial and speech and debate, and I'd always kind of shown an inclination towards the law. So that was a really cool opportunity for me. And then my summer internships also helped a lot. As I mentioned earlier, I interned both at the Northern California World Trade Center and with the judge at the county courthouse. And both of the internships were very different, but they were both really beneficial. And I learned a ton of different skills, but I just kind of knew in my heart that law was the way that I wanted to go. So it was really nice to be able to tie that into my senior project to also enhance my own understanding of the courts. So now as to why I picked this as my senior project, aside from the fact that it kind of correlates perfectly with what I want to do, I felt through my first couple years here that there was kind of a general disconnect between students and faculty, and I think I was really lucky in that because I was pretty motivated from the time that I was a freshman or a sophomore. My teachers kind of saw that in me and so were really supportive, but not a lot of kids have that. When you're 13 or 14, not everybody knows that education is as important as it is, or that you should put effort into school even if you're not planning on pursuing higher education. And so I really felt like that was a big part of why I was able to enjoy my Rio experience so much, and so I wanted to extend that opportunity to the other kids on this campus. Another reason was student accountability. One of the biggest lessons that I've learned in Civitas is how to be responsible for my own actions, and I don't think that that's something that is emphasized enough throughout the rest of the student body. So I think that this will give kids an idea of what it really means to have to reflect on a poor decision that they made and have to deal with those consequences, and in like the full scope of the people who were affected by their decisions. Lastly, I wanted to kind of foster this overall culture shift from a school of kids who are kind of doing their own thing to make it a more cohesive and a more comfortable environment. Like I said, Civitas was always a really safe place for me, and so I just wanted, I didn't see a reason why the rest of the campus shouldn't be like that, and I didn't see a reason why the rest of the kids at the school shouldn't feel as though they were as supported as I know that I was. And so, just some final remarks regarding Civitas and the effect that it had on my life. The reason I say it's a lifestyle is because it really did affect so many different avenues of my life. I wouldn't be as involved in nearly as many things if I hadn't been in this program. I wouldn't think as critically, I wouldn't be as pensive or be as creative, and I don't think would have the same kind of tenacity that I do today. It taught me a lot of pragmatic skills, from writing resumes and cover letters and how to do interviews to, how to manage your time and resources and put on different events. Like you might have heard from other kids that we put on a pancake breakfast and an international dinner and all sorts of different events. So those skills in and of themselves were also really helpful. The official motto for the program is that it's a place for civic learning, and that's absolutely true. I definitely have a better sense of my responsibilities as a citizen. Well, I'm not actually a U.S. citizen yet, but a better sense of my responsibilities as a citizen in a democratic society. But I think even more than that, it's a place for personal growth in just about every sense of the word. It teaches you how to be more compassionate, teaches you how to work harder in all of your different endeavors, and I think overall Civitas just produces kids who, even if they maybe don't know exactly what they want to do, know that they want to do something and know that they want to have some kind of substantial impact on their community, whether that community is within their family, whether it be at their school, or whether it be on the state or national or even global level. Thank you. Yes?
Yeah, you covered some of this in your final remarks, but I'm curious, what would you say to a student who's thinking of enrolling or signing up for Civitas? What would you say to that student? And then I actually have a second part to it.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any students for whom you think Civitas is not appropriate?
Okay. So to answer the first part of your question, I was actually doing a bunch of tours yesterday with 8th graders, and so I actually had one girl who, when I came into the library, pulled me aside and was like, hey, I'm really interested in joining the Civitas program. And what I told her was that you will get opportunities in Civitas and you will have the chance to learn things in Civitas that many people don't have until they're out of high school or sometimes even out of college. And so that I think is at least what was the most impactful part about Civitas for me, was that it kind of had me operating at a level that, and had, you know, all of us operating at a level that many people don't until later in their lives. Are there people that I don't think the Civitas program is right for? Yes. If you're not interested, or maybe not interested, but if you're just totally have no desire whatsoever to go into the social sciences or even learn anything about them, I think it would be a really difficult program to take advantage of, just because of the level of the rigor of the work, and also just the nature of the work itself. It's a lot of reading, it's a lot of writing, and so if you know that, let's say, you know, you want to be a chemical engineer, it might not be the most fun place for you. Yes?
How are the college applications going, and have you thought of major more?
As far as college applications go, I have submitted 5 of about 14. Yeah, 5 out of 14. Yeah, it's way too many, but unfortunately I wasn't able to visit a lot of schools on the East Coast, so it's a little bit of like, well, I'll apply, and if I get in, I'll go visit, you know? As far as majors, I applied to most of the UCs as undecided, but within the humanities or within the social sciences. I'm not really sure what I want to major in, but I think I'm leaning kind of towards political science, anthropology, sociology, something like that. But really just something that will be a lot of, again, critical reading, critical writing, and you know, just being able to like think on my feet and being able to compose articulate and also substantial remarks on my own. And I think that, well, at least at this point, I feel like I want to go to law school, and so I was actually reading up on what kind of majors would be best for that. And my idea was that, you know, a pre-law or criminal justice major would be good for that, but what I read and what I discovered actually was that the people who tend to do best on the LSAT are people who are in those majors where they're having to think a lot and they're having to read a lot, and they're able to, you know, dissect and analyze information and respond to it kind of in the moment.
It's not being a citizen, is there any roadblocks as far as any of those things we just talked about?
I mean, I just sent off my citizenship application a couple weeks ago. Yeah, so yeah, it's not something I'm like doing on purpose. I just haven't lived here long enough.
Yeah.
So far, I don't think so. Do you mean in terms of like my future career aspirations, or? Oh.
Just college and.
I don't think so. I mean, I know for USC I had to upload a copy of my green card, but no, I don't think so. And I think I'm fortunate in that because, as I mentioned earlier, my parents are in academia, and my dad actually went to his PhD when I was pretty little, and so he was pretty well versed in English, and so moving around, while it was pretty hard, I think I was really lucky in that it wasn't nearly as hard for me as I know it has been for some of our friends and family. Yes?
So which issues will the restorative justice system have jurisdiction over?
Okay, mainly things that would either result in an after-school detention or a Saturday school, so things like dress code violations, cell phone violations, littering, definitely, that's a big problem we have here, and, you know, nothing like super big that is, you know, gonna like overwhelm the kids and be really subjective. And another thing is that if the kids, either the kids on the tribunal or the kids who are being advocates or even the bailiffs, know the person on trial really well, I have a policy in place that they have to recuse themselves for the case, because I do want to have some sort of quality assurance. Any other questions?
All right, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.